In August of 2018, user Ishitono made a post on the FFG forums titled, "What is the best house and why is it Logos?" This was before the game was even officially launched. Surely it was crazy to call the best house this early. Well, I'm here, almost 2 years later, to tell you why he was right. The Society of Logic and Reason, or Logos for short, is home to the foremost intellectuals of the Crucible. This is the introduction given to House Logos by FFG. Logos functions much like a parallel to Blue in Magic the Gathering, providing efficiency through draws, archiving, and out-of-house plays. Blue has long been hailed as the best color in Magic, and I believe Logos deserves that distinction for Keyforge as well. But what are my arguments for this? Well, looking at top 8 finishes in Code Era Vault Tours, Logos was played in 55% of decks, making it the second most played house after Shadows with over 80%. Then, in the AOA era, Logos was played in 53% of top 8 decks, making it the third most played house after Shadows and Dis. And now, in Worlds Collide Era Vault Tours, Logos has risen up to being the most played house, being played in 60% of top 8 decks and beating out the runner-up Dis with 10%. Now, in the Code Era, more than 80% of top decks played Shadows. But every single deck to win a Vault Tour in the Code Era played Logos. That is actually true for both the Worlds Collide and the Code Era. The only exception is the AOA era, in which 4 out of 11 Vault Tour winners didn't play Logos in their deck. But I still think the fact that more than 80% of Vault Tour winners played Logos has to back up my point. Okay, so it's clear from the statistics that Logos is very, very good. But why exactly is that? First off, Logos offers excellent spot removal in cards like Twin Bolt Emission and Postron Bolt. Alongside with this, it also offers pretty good denial options in cards like Information Exchange and of course Edai 4x4. Cards like Interdimensional Graft make it possible for you to turn what seems like a lost game around and can be comboed with cards like Binate Rupture for massive burst. Cards like Titan Mechanic provide big bodies with good effects that allow you to fight creatures off the table. The same applies to Hapsis, only with a little setup he can actually fight any 5-power creature off the table. Cards like Rocket Boots allow for some crazy combo potential and interesting plays. And cards like Group Think Tank. But even though all these cards certainly provide great utility and help make Logos a good house, they aren't what helped make Logos the best house. Now, we're going into the holy trinity of what makes Logos the best house. And it can all be summed up with one word: efficiency. Efficiency is the measure of your deck's ability to quickly run through itself. But wait. Why is this so good? Well, to answer that, let's have a look at another card game. Or actually, 3 others. The 3 titans of the TCG industry. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Magic the Gathering. And these 3 cards. Pot of Greed, the original bill, and Ancestral Recall. These are all cards with virtually no cost, and they were all so unbelievably good that they're all currently banned, even in legacy formats. But wait, that might sound weird. Why is drawing a couple of extra cards so good that it has to be banned? Well, the simple answer is consistency. In Yu-Gi-Oh! You talk about going plus in cards. This means that if you go +1 by playing a card, that card replaces itself and allows you to get another card. Usually cards that do this have some sort of cost on them or limitations, but not Pot of Greed. Pot of Greed can run in any deck and essentially lowers your deck size by 2 because it's a costless draw 2. The same can be said for Ancestral Recall and the original Trainer Bill. The fact that they essentially make your deck smaller means that they reduce the luck factor and also give you a much higher chance of hitting your ideal lines of play. So, what about draw in Keyforge? Well, Keyforge has a much higher base efficiency than all of the games I just talked about. This, coupled with the fact that you can only play 1 house per turn, makes straight draw not totally broken. This is because of the chance that you might draw into cards that are not from House Logos, which are cards you can't play and also most likely cards you would have drawn at the end of your turn anyway. However, this doesn't make draw bad. Firstly, because of the chance that you actually draw into Logos cards, allowing you to take a bigger turn. And secondly, because of the fact that you might draw over your own hand size, allowing your next turn to be more impactful. Cards like Sensi Sensi Sensic, Daughter, and Mother already allow you to draw over your max hand size. And you know what they say about guys with big hands. Anyway, some draw cards also have added benefits. Library access is good, not only because it lets you burst out a lot of Logos cards, but also because it lets you have at maximum 1 Logos card in your starting hand next turn. This allows for a more impactful next turn with one of your other houses, if you want that. Professor Surtikin is also a card that allows for such massive draws that it circumvents any lack of impact draw might have otherwise. While draw is universal in almost every card game, the next 2 mechanics I'm going to talk about aren't. Cross-house play specifically is only really possible in Keyforge, but it's a very, very useful mechanic. Cross-house play is exhibited mostly in House Logos through cards like Quant, Helperbot, Phase Shift, and Jargoggle. Cross-house play is good for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it allows you to round out your Logos turn, either by setting up your next turn or playing key cards from other houses that help you steal down your opponent or maybe deal with the board. Secondly, it increases your efficiency. It allows you to play more cards from your hand, which in turn lets you draw more cards at the end of your turn. But the best mechanic in Logos, and maybe Keyforge in general, is archiving. Like cross-house play, archiving increases your end of turn efficiency, letting you draw more cards because you archived cards. But it's even better than cross-house play because it also virtually increases your hand size. You can always pick up your archives at the start of your turn. So how big your archive is, that's how many extra cards you have in your hand, kind of. Of course, there's some skill in managing your archive. If you have a lot of different cards from a lot of different houses in your archive, it might end up chaining you later on. But if you manage to keep your archive tidy, It's like an extra hand you can always pick up when you need it. This is actually another reason why archiving is so good. Like draw, it can help you take bigger turns with other houses. But unlike draw, where you either have to draw into locus cards or draw over your hand size for it to help you take bigger turns, archiving in itself increases your hand size and can therefore help you burst out massively. Most houses benefit from bursting as opposed to slow playing, and archiving is one of the most reliable tools to help you do that. But wait, why do I keep talking about helping other houses? Wasn't I talking about why locus is the best house? Does helping other houses really have something to do with being the best house? Am I going to stop asking rhetorical questions? Yes. When? Right now. Locus is actually the best house because it's a supporting house. It is true that most of my arguments for locus being the best house relate to locus's ability to help other houses make plays. And that's the case because that is what makes locus the best house. A general problem many decks face in Keyforge is an over-reliance on luck. Many of my favorite decks fall into this pitfall. And while playing your deck correctly makes it so most of the time you won't have to worry about this, there are going to be those matches where all luck just seems stacked against you. You draw all your answers one turn too late, and you somehow always seem to end up with 2-2-2 hands. Well, that's where locus comes in. Being able to draw more cards and up your hand size in turn ups your chances of drawing the answers you need, and therefore it increases your consistency. With locus, you won't have to chain yourself by keeping that too much protected hand. You can just archive it for when you really need it. You don't need to worry about drawing into the board clear because you've already drawn it. And yeah, I think you get my point. What I'm trying to say is, locus isn't the best house because it in itself is overpowered, but because it has the uncanny ability to make overpowered houses consistent. And of course, this might all change depending on how they handle locus in the future. But as of right now, I'm almost certain that locus is the best house in Keyforge. Thank you for watching.